Välkomna till Folkets Radio, idag med Thomas Meyer. He is a German author, meditation teacher and civil rights activist. Welcome back to the program.
Thank you for inviting me again.
It's a pleasure. So you have written the book COVID Vaccines from a Spiritual Perspective. And there's plenty of discussion these days about the mRNA vaccines, the adverse events such as heart problems, blood clotting, and fertility loss, and much more. But do these vaccines also damage the connection to our souls? How do they affect our spiritual life? Are they actually part of a transhuman agenda to alter humanity into something completely different? So this is what you have investigated. And we discussed your book and your work in our previous interview about 2 years ago. I highly recommend everyone to watch that. I'll link to it below. So, Thomas, since our last conversation, you have continued your research. But before we go there, let's recapitulate your book. Talk about the testimonies that you got from many different energy healers, their observations when meeting COVID vaccinated people.
Yes, but I think it's better to look a little bit at the slide, then I can show you more easily. Here on the right, you can see the book COVID Vaccines from a Spiritual Perspective, and the question was, how do COVID vaccinations affect the soul and spirit and our life after death? It's not an unusual question, I know, but it's the most important question. And I ask a lot of colleagues who work with supersensible perceptions to get reports from them, and more than 50 people sent me what they experienced, and out of this material I wrote the book. Here is normal supersensible members of the human being. You must understand, if I speak of a human being, our physical body is only a small part. We had a lot of energetic bodies, soul bodies, and spiritual bodies, and that is at the whole the aura.
I was thinking, Thomas, can I just interrupt you for 1 second?
Of course.
So I was thinking, just before we go, deep into these concepts of that you use, so etheric body and aura and all that, which maybe we should also explain. Some people don't even know what that is. Maybe you could just give us a bit like the testimonies from the healers, because I mean, what they touch people and they feel the energy. Sort of, what did they report?
Yes, and if they touch people, it depends. It depends of the profession, but you also can perceive it also only by going with your awareness to someone, and then you see. So he is in his eye centered, or he is beside himself. His aura is centered, or it's pulled apart. You can experience it. Everyone can experience it, but normally we give not a lot of awareness to such perceptions. Or here you can see the auras, the different layers, and after the vaccination we had such picture that you can see that the aura is ripped apart. But to make it a little bit more clearer, here is a quote of a craniosacral therapist. So she wrote me that she is working with a body that the brain and the pineal felt as dried up and shriveled, and although she could not find the cranial sacral rhythm anymore, normally they all could have this rhythm. And he wrote me, in more than 20 years of experience, I have never had such experience with any of my other clients. So that only gives you a little bit of taste. Or another description was from a reader of my book. I always get such descriptions, and he wrote me, only if he is around of vaccinated people, he felt that the vaccine entities immediately trying to attack the portal to the soul on the back of my neck and cut my spiritual connection.
Yes. So after our last interview, I was also very interested in this topic, and I did a lot of interviews with energy healers, and I also traveled to South America. I did a radio documentary. I can link to it below. And so one therapist, she told me that when she touches a client, she can sort of feel the soul coming through the body. And with vaccinated people, she couldn't feel them anymore. So can you explain how you see in a human being which is healthy, the soul should come through the body? Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. But everyone knows it. So if after night when I slept, my soul was away. The body was lying in bed. Where I was, I don't know. I was asleep. So, but in the morning, by awakening, the soul is coming back. But it needed a while, and in the first moments after getting awake, I'm not really here. I'm not present. And after taking a shower, drinking a coffee, though I get more and more present because the soul is more dwelling into my body.
Yeah. So this is happening then, that with the vaccine, the COVID vaccines, there is a separation, so the soul cannot enter into the body, really, right?
Yes. That is the main point. That is the main point. But you can go on with your life, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But you are not really. It's not the feelings. That's my life. You are more it's more an automatic life.
Yes, and you mention also in your book that most of the clients, the vaccinated clients, they had not noticed themselves that they were going through this change. They only noticed afterwards that, oh my goodness, now I'm back to myself. What happened to me? But during the process, many people did not notice this.
Yes. So is it, because we notice a lot of things we don't notice.
Yeah.
It's not unusual. And then we because we did not did not perceive the difference, then so is it, and it goes on.
But that's why we also need to listen to. We can get mirroring from good friends and maybe spouses that, that something is changing, that people are losing empathy or whatever is happening. Yeah.
Yes, and that's also one reason why I have wrote this book, to offer the possibility to understand. And I get a lot of letters from readers who said, "Oh, no, I could understand what I have experienced, but I could not find words for it. But now I understand it better." And that is a quite important process.
Yes. So the question, of course, one would ask is, I mean, if this is, you write that this is a strong spiritual attack on humanity. So what is behind this attack? Is it like an alien consciousness or spirit? What is behind this?
Behind this is on the first level a religious war. We had a new world religion, and that is a materialistic world religion. And the materialistic world religion is fighting against spirituality, and they fight not only in your thinking. Our thinking is totally possessed with this materialistic stuff, but they also try to anchor the materialism in our physical body. So that's for me a kind of religious war. If the people lose their spiritual contact, the real spiritual contact, because the physical body is so hardened, then it's quite easy with the materialistic world religion. I think that is the main background. And the next question is, what is behind this materialistic world religion? There, if you go meditative inside this field, you find a lot of, we call it adversary forces. You find at first what we call Ahrimanic beings, that are the being of, that are the spirits of materialism. But there are behind them, there are also other beings, we call them thoracic beings, who are quite aggressive and had quite a bad influence. These thoracic beings are always, if there is a war, violence, abuse, there are the thoracic beings. And we found, coming back to the COVID vaccines, that this mRNA vaccines are possessed by thoracic beings. And if you take the vaccine, then you open your doors for these thoracic beings, and then they are in your aura. So, and that is for us, that is the main, the main point, what is happening.
Yes. So the question, of course, some people would ask, how on earth can these thoracic beings, this demonic force, enter into the vaccine production? Is there some kind of black magic, or how can they come into the vaccines?
Yeah, it's a kind of black magic, of course. But for that, you have to understand that we all, in Earth evolution, we always have a light stream and we have a black stream. So the black stream, that is a stream of black magic, of working together with the thoracic beings, and it started in the Atlantis time. And in the old Atlantis is going underwater because there was too much black magic. And this stream is going on, and it always popped up. We always have a war. In Germany, we had the Nazis, Second World War. It's amazing which power these black magic groups have, and we have always this stream, and so it's not something totally new. And then you have to understand, if you produce a new substance, then this substance has no spiritual layers above. Every natural substance has normal elemental beings, then has normal angels in the spiritual levels of the substance, as a herbal. So, but we, as humanity, produce a lot of new substances without looking what is above, what is the spiritual connection of the substance. So that means if we create a new vaccine, as example, the spiritual layers are empty. And if it's empty, then it's an invitation to all adversary forces to step in. And if you produce something not with a good motivation, no, because you only want money, now it's there are the Pfizer papers. That's also important for us. The Pfizer papers are all papers of the which they produced to get the approval of the vaccine, and it's now and now it's clear Pfizer knew that it doesn't help, and there are a lot bad medical side effects. So you can read it with Pfizer papers. That means it's a criminal organization. They don't want to heal the people if people die or get ill through the vaccines, it doesn't matter. They knew everything, but the idea is only they want to sell it. So, and that's and if you go in this motivation, it's clear you attract the baddest spirits you can, and then these spirits are all are in these vaccines. And we also found that the vaccines in Russia, also in China, are not so bad. There are not such zoonotic beings involved. And I think because there was another motivation behind. So motivation attracts the beings. That's you have to understand.
Yes. You mentioned also in our first interview that everybody who takes the vaccine sort of goes into a contract with these beings, and the contract can be different. So on the one hand, maybe a person doesn't really want to take the vaccine, doesn't believe in it, but they're sort of giving him a hard time in his job. So, okay, let's take it. That's one contract. But another person maybe is filled with fear and thinking that I have nothing, my immune system is not good enough, this technology is going to help me. Then it's almost like inviting a savior. So it becomes like a religious contract, and then it's much deeper. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. That's correct. And so the effects of the vaccines is not always the same. It really depends to a lot of different aspects. One is your own motivation. It deepens the contract or not. But on the other side, also of the doctor, what is his motivation and what was the surrounding when you have gotten the vaccine? It always make a difference.
So, the word transhumanism, I think people associate with advanced AI and cyborgs, maybe not with vaccines. But the tendency of these vaccines, to simplify your conclusions, is that they make people more zombie-like, so that the body does no longer have the soul within it. I just wanted to play you a short clip with the American author Naomi Wolf. And this is from an interview with Rainer Fulmich, where she describes the atmosphere in the city, how it changed after the COVID vaccines were rolled out.
I was in New York and on a rooftop bar, and just I had this sense that I was in a hologram, that I was seeing the crowd but not feeling the crowd. And I checked that experience walking along the streets. And I've lived in New York for decades, and Manhattan is famous for the sense of a kind of a pulsating electricity of all these millions of people closely crowded together, and I couldn't feel that.
So, Thomas, what is your take on what she described, her reaction when walking through New York City? She could no longer feel the energy, so to speak. Did that resemble your book?
Yes, it's another description of the same thing. And and they brought it quite good together, and you can feel it everywhere.
That the energy, you feel that you no longer feel sort of the pulse and the energy. Is that it?
Yeah, and also you lose your empathy. You in with your emotions, you are more directed from outside morality, that you feel you do not feel inside yourself what is right or wrong. No, because you only follow the stream.
Yeah. So I guess, if you talk about transhumanism, if the attack is directed against our human connectedness to the soul, it would make sense to promote a worldview and a culture in which there is no such thing as a soul. We're living creatures, are just machines, and the best we can hope for is better technology, a better operating system, as Moderna called their vaccine. So, perhaps since many of us have been so indoctrinated with this mechanistic worldview, perhaps you can explain some spiritual concepts for beginners. Like, for instance, you talk about the aura. What is the aura?
What is the aura? Yes, the aura is a concept for all members of the human being which you cannot see. So, but what you can see is only the material body, but our life forces, and you can feel your life force by yourself. You are awake with energy or not, that's your life force. But there is a body of life force, and you can feel it around you. And we have our emotions and our sensations. That is part of the astral body, but that also is part of our aura. But also, when we think we are inspired by spiritual beings, the question is from which beings, and you also can see this mental field also in your aura, and everyone experiences the aura. You meet someone and would have immediately an experience, how is he doing? So, and you feel, because we always perceive the aura of the others. Or you enter a room where a meeting is, immediately you feel the atmosphere. That is also a perception of the aura, not from a single person, then aura from a group.
And what about the etheric body? What is that for people who don't know?
Yeah, in China they call it qi, in Japan ki, in India prana. That always, it's only different words for the same. It's like flowing energy, and you can feel every body worker is working with the etheric body. You can feel, is the energy flowing through your body or not? And if there are blockages, everyone can feel it. Then you say, "Oh, I'm not in my leg. I cannot really feel. I cannot feel my feet on the ground." That is an aspect of the ether body. And all what we can see in the material world is created out of the etheric world. So if we look, it's quite easy to experience this. Now we have spring, when the flowers are coming. Before the flowers are coming, there is an etheric aura around.
Yeah, the flowers.
Yeah, around the flowers, so yeah. So, but it's really another kind of thinking, because it's not a new thinking. All cultures knew it, that our material world is created out of the spiritual world, and the etheric world is there are the handcrafts, and behind the etheric world is the astral world and the spiritual world.
So most people still have a notion that there is a soul, but in the school and the teachings they don't talk about it anymore, and concepts like aura and etheric is becoming less and less. So this is part of what you call the transhumanist religion, and you say that this religion is actually the covert state religion in most countries. This is what is being promoted.
Yes.
Can you explain?
But it's only one part of the whole agenda. Another part is this digitalization. So we as humanity lose our sensual perception and sitting in front of screens. 20 years ago, the children were outside playing football, running around, and they were always perceiving the lights, the air, the wind, everything. But now a lot of children are sitting inside in front of the screen. That means the technology has taken over our sensual perception. And the next step is this artificial intelligence. So now these computers are taken over our thinking. We do not have to think ourselves. We only have to ask some artificial intelligence, and then the other is coming, we are losing our thinking. That is how this technology is going to take over us humans, and that is a transhumanist agenda.
So since our last interview, almost 2 years have passed, and you have continued to do your research, and you have summarized the most important findings in a PDF, in a presentation. So would you like to mention perhaps the most important findings that you have, or do you want me to ask some specific questions?
Yeah, I was looking what is the natural science saying, because spiritual research and natural science should complement each other. And so I found some quite interesting studies. One quite interesting study is coming from South Korea, with over 2 million participants. 50% of the population of Seoul, that is the main city of South Korea, was selected, and they have built it two groups, vaccinated and unvaccinated. And the study showed that this COVID vaccinations triggered a 68% increase in depression, 43% increase in anxiety disorders, and 93% increase in sleep disorders. That means that these COVID vaccines affect our personality and our emotions. And it's, though that's a natural science study, but in the end, with the same, what we have said in our book about the COVID vaccines coming out of spiritual research. And also this brain fog and Alzheimer is also triggered by this vaccinations. It's another study also from South Korea with more than 500,000 people. That's quite a lot over the age of 65. And the result was that after the COVID vaccination, there was more risk of cognitive impairment and more risk of Alzheimer's.
And this is very interesting, because you on the one hand, it's sort of as you say, it is a spiritual aspect, and it's a damage on our sort of hard disk, sort of the cognitive capacity, the increase of Alzheimer.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, it has been paralleled with the indoctrination during the COVID. So you mentioned a very interesting book by a German author, Dr. Michael Nails, written the book The Indoctrinated Brain, how sort of the combination of
yes,
biological impairment and indoctrination sort of creates almost like a new reality where people no longer remember how life was before. How does this research relate to yours?
Yeah, he came to the same, but on a natural science way. Dr. Michael Nails is a natural scientist without spiritual concepts, but he found that the spike proteins accumulate in the brain and cause damage. There are a lot of studies who show this, and then he in his book he described that these spike proteins attack the autobiographical memory in the brain, and they are also responsible to shrink the hippocampus. Also, together with the COVID measures, as a result, many people lose their individual experiences, cultural ties, and our whole society loses its mental immune system. And people become more receptive to indoctrination because they have lost their roots. They forgot who they are, and with little resistance allow others to tell them who they should be. and what they should do. So this is the other side. On the one side, you get Alzheimer's and so on. But but also the people who did not get Alzheimer's a little bit, they are also a little bit more blocked from the soul, because the soul is our in my view, I would not speak about autobiographical memory in the brain. I would speak about the soul, because that is the cause of morality. And if I'm not in contact with my soul, I lose my connection to myself. But in the same time, you can see it also in the brain, because everything what is going on in the spiritual world is mirrored in the physical world. So if you find something in the brain, it could be the same, but only from the material viewpoint.
Yes. Yeah, you mentioned Dr. Michael Nails. It's a very fascinating book. I just want to play you a short clip from his interview with Tucker Carlson, where he talks about the sort of new normal.
You have to create a situation where there's no other fence anymore. There's no fence where you can see the grass is green on the other side. Look at other dictatorships, fascism in Germany, Stalinism, whatever.
Yes.
There was always a fence, a border where it was different on the other side. But we have to think here global. If everybody is attacked, then there is no border, there is no other side, there is no way, no place you can hide, no place you can go. But there's another border in your brain, the brain of history. You know it was different in the past. But once you start overriding the past, then even this border is gone.
So this is very interesting what he's saying, that there is you remember that something was different before, and it can be that we had more democracy, we had more freedom, and now it's more totalitarian. But in a deeper sense, it can also be remembering that I have a soul, I am a spiritual being, that you start adjusting to this new normal where you become more and more like a zombie. Is that how you see what he's saying?
Yes, that is it. Yes, and it's a normal way how every totalitarian system is working. They try that the people lose their connection to the nature, lose connection to religion. It's always the same.
Yeah. But this is the most scary part about this, that you don't notice it yourself. In your presentation, you also have a reference to Peter Breggin, the psychiatrist, who compared the COVID vaccination with lobotomy.
Yeah.
So a person who has been lobotomized, he or she doesn't notice it. Only the people around them can notice it if they are not lobotomized. So it's a sneaking process that we might not even notice that we are being altered.
Yeah, it's not an outwardly brutal. It's a fine process. But it's a more effective method.
So that is very, very scary that we are being changed in this way, and many people don't even notice it.
Yes, of course, and this change is going in small steps over years and years. One step more, one step more, one step more. It's not only the COVID vaccines. You have to see it as a whole.
One other thing which you bring up, which I think is very interesting, you go into the microscopical investigation of human blood and the difference between blood of the vaccinated and compared to the blood of the unvaccinated. This is also related to this transhuman attack on the human beings. Can you maybe show some slides?
Here's a book we have spoken of Dr. Michael Nails, The Indoctrinated Brain. And here's another book from a German doctor, Inge Jast Nastansky, and it's also in English, Corona Blood Phenomena. And here you can see pictures of the blood of unvaccinated people. And you can see in the middle fine structure. And yeah, here is also an aura, but an open aura. And here you can see pictures of blood after the COVID vaccination. So, and what you can see is the structure is damaged, and the aura around is now dense, it's closed. So these pictures are quite, are really hard if you look it. That's quite interesting. And another interesting thing is what she could show is the spiritual shedding. That means non-physical transmission. And she could observe such transmission only when a blood sample of unvaccinated blood was stored in the same room where also vaccinated blood was examined. Mm. That's quite interesting. Or here's another example from her. It's the story behind these two pictures is following. The examiner pricked his finger with a needle which has been used for blood for the vaccinated. And then his blood, what came out of his finger, immediately showed the typical characteristics of the vaccine blood. That is the picture on the right. That's quite interesting. So you can see it could not be a physical transmission, but if you come in contact, then you had a non-physical, an auric transmission of the beings.
Very interesting. I think we should also return a little bit later to the topic of shedding. A lot of people are asking about that. But I just wonder, when you see these two images of the vaccinated blood and the unvaccinated blood, you write in your presentation that the I, sort of the core essence of the human being, is represented in the blood. What do you see when you see these two different images? What is your explanation?
Yeah, my explanation is that the eye is quite damaged of the vaccinated blood. It shows that the eye is damaged and it is possessed by the somatic spiritual beings. And if I go in a meditative way into these pictures, I really come also to the experience of these somatic beings.
So it's in the blood that it makes itself shown like this.
Yes, the blood is only mirroring what is going on on our supersensible levels. It's not. You have to understand. The first thing is what is going on in the spiritual levels, and this is mirrored in the physical levels. But our materialistic world religion, they see opposite. They always suggest, as they always try to bring it in our thinking, that only the matter is important. The whole normal medicine only speaks about the matter, but the matter is of course is a matter. The material level is important, but the material level is always only the mirror of the spiritual level.
So you say that the I just want to make it clear that it's not this I. You mean the I, who I am.
Yes.
That is sort of being present in the blood. And when you look at the blood of the vaccinated, this I is sort of distorted, and you see all this technology and something else coming in.
Yes. And the eye of the blood of the vaccinated people cannot be the carrier of the spiritual eye, how it should be. That's what this blood research, in my understanding, show.
I just want to make one also clarification that you use the word materialism, and I know exactly what you mean. That people are obsessed with material things, with a fancy car, with salary, and so on, and they don't pay less attention to things of spiritual and moral value and so on. But there's also this divide between material and spirit, which comes from Descartes, with mater comes from the word mother. Mother Earth is downgraded, and some people don't like this distinction. So another word which one could use is mechanistic, to look at it,
Yes.
mechanistic worldview, that we are just atoms, that it's just mechanistic. This is possibility to use that word also.
Yes, perhaps it's clearer. So it's not for me, when I speak about materialistic worldview, it's the idea that there is no spiritual world, there is only the material world, and you can explain everything by looking in the material world. That is the main concept, and but then, yeah, but the problem is, we in our whole education is only based on this mechanistic or material worldview.
Yes. Let's move on. You also write in your book, and that's a very important part, that the vaccinated people after death, they get stuck. They don't move forward in their evolution, in their afterlife. So how do you know that? And can you explain how this works?
Yeah, the afterlife is not a matter of faith or theoretical discussions. That's important to understand, because the condition of the dead people can be perceived empirically through supersensible perception. And this ability to perceive existed at all times and everywhere on earth. But today, in our materialistic times, it's not anymore important, but in all other cultures, it's most important. The connection to the ancestor is in Asia, in Africa, in South America, quite important. And there are always a lot of people who really can perceive how the dead people are doing. And what perhaps what we always find is that if someone has taken the COVID vaccines and then died immediately afterwards, he often has a blocked ether body and a blocked phantom body. Phantom body is a spiritual blueprint of our material body. It's not the material body, it's form body, phantom body, and ether body, and they are possessed by these somatic beings, and then they are blocked. Normally, after going to die, the ether body should expand. In the end, expand to the planets, and your phantom body should expand to the stars. But if this will not happen, then the soul is chained on these bodies and suffers a lot. And that is what we found often by people who have taken the vaccines and died immediately afterwards. If there is a longer time between 1 year, 2 years, it's in my impression not we have the effect, but it's a little bit milder. Perhaps I want to only give you one example that for make it more clear. That's another man I knew, and he has taken the vaccination. He was forced by his family, and the day after that he fell from his bicycle with a heart attack and was dead. And we looked together with some other friends to him how he is doing as a deceased, and we found him completely confused and desperate in the afterlife. And he experienced no spiritual light as he was used to during his time on earth. He was a quite spiritual person, but he was cut off, locked up, and didn't know what was going on. And after we were able to make him understand that he was experiencing the consequences of the COVID vaccination and that he was being overtaken by the somatic beings, then he was able, as a dead person, to face up to this. And then his eye power, not this eye, This eye power, the spiritual eye power was restored, and then he was able to come back on his spiritual foundation. And then we had the impression that that's enough, and now he could manage the further development on his own. But he need really the clear impulse from up, and we have to make him understandable what is his situation is. But the most these dead people usually need more, because they bring only a few people bring such a spiritual force in the afterlife. Normally, the dead people need active help from someone through prayers, through spiritual impulses. And yeah, if you really do it, you can reach a lot. So I can only speak out of my experience and also of the experience of my colleagues, that it was always possible to help a deceased to overcome the possession.
So before we wrap up, a lot of people are asking about shedding. That is, the people who did not take the vaccine, but they are all around people who have taken it in their office, at work, in school, maybe with a partner, maybe with friends. What is your take on shedding? Do we who have not taken the vaccine, do we also get the same images in our blood? Do we have the same problems that our soul is not present, or how are we affected?
Yeah, it could be the same effects, but not so strong. But it's important to understand that we cannot avoid dealing with the vaccine beings. As humanity, we interpenetrate each other in our auras, and though we taken over the vaccine beings, but the anchoring of this vaccine beings is not so strong as not so strong like we have taken the vaccination. But I would give you a concrete example. A friend, or two examples. I often experience, if I come to airport, train station, it's something, oh, what's going on? So it's something is biting me, and then, oh yeah, here's a lot of vaccine beings, and then I really have to work on my centering. But it's not always it's always the same. So I also experience it often. And another concrete example, a friend came to me some months ago and said that he had been suffering from depression about 6 months, and he didn't know why he is in such a depressive mode. And we worked on it, and in the session I found all the spiritual phenomena of a COVID vaccination in his aura. But he had not been vaccinated. He had picked up these spirits from others. And after we have done a healing work, healing prayer, and he also worked with it, it needs a lot of time, then he felt a relief and relaxation, and with them, the depression was gone. That is the main important thing. And I asked him several times in the following month whether it had stayed that way, and he said, yes, the depression was gone. And our work on this shedding was a turning point. Normally, it's not so clear if you do spiritual healing work, because normally you had 20 aspects and you work on one aspect, that's good, but the other 19 aspects are working. But here it was, we could really find the turning point. So that's also I like to tell the story, but it makes perhaps clear what is meant with shedding. And I think you should take in mind, if you have some phenomena in your soul or in your body which you could not explain, think about, could it be vaccination shedding? And perhaps with the thought, then you could find a solution.
So that's a good way to ask the final question then, for people who have seen this, there's a lot of discouraging information about how we are affected. People have taken the vaccines, their bodies they have losing the connection to the soul. They're being taken over by these transhumanist spirits. How is the best way to heal from this? And maybe at the same time also, how is the best way to stand against the transhumanist agenda?
I think the most important point is that you really take responsibility for your own spirituality, and that you all really do something for your spiritual connection. That is, in my way, the most important thing. And if you bring your spirituality in your daily life, you always there is an impulse. There's an impulse. Also, if you have taken something over, then there is an impulse. And with spiritual healing, that means as focused spiritual work, you can solve everything. So all I want, perhaps I want to only give you one example that for make it more clear. And a friend who he got manager of an older home, and at this time we had mandatory vaccination in Germany, and though he decided also to take the COVID vaccines, and then he told me he felt that when he was meditating in his chakras, the connection to the higher angel hierarchies was cut off. He was used to go in a chakra and look and to create the spiritual connection. And then he told me he worked every day in the meditation to restore the connection, and it needed really a time. But after around 3 months, he said, "No, it felt like it was before." So it's only one example. If you can overcome it, perhaps it needed some time. It's not so I do something, click, and then it's over. Perhaps it's you have to do a little bit more, but it's always possible. And in the end, you are creating new forces. So we are in the situation. That's my perhaps an important thought. It's a school. We shall learn to stay against bad spirits, bad forces, and we shall strengthen our capacity, our abilities. So, and it's always a way of learning. And if you if you have experienced it, if you have also the experience encountering afterwards, you are stronger.
Yeah. So this final point, the connection to the soul, but also, I guess, the connection to the heart.
But for me, it's the same. I would not distinguish it, because if you are really connected with your heart and you can feel it, if you are really connected with your heart, then you are connected with your soul, and then you are also connected with your angel. I would say it's always the same.
Thomas Meyer, thank you so much for being on the program.
Thank you, Per, for inviting.